Hello everyone, this is my tutorial on how to script in RBLX Lua, and a lot of people make it way too complicated or don't explain it enough. Well, I'm gonna teach you the very basics so you can then go teach yourself how to use it. I'm gonna teach you how to read the code, and then I'm gonna direct you to the wiki so you can look anything you want to use in there. So I'm going to teach you how to structure your code, and then if you want to, say for instance, have something happen when you click, you'll just be able to look up on the wiki how to make, what the words are that you need to use to start that thing, basically. So this is the very core basics, and once you know them, you should just be able to look up anything else you need to. And if you really need help, you can always try to look at the developer forum. I'm going to preface this by saying I have a thick accent, so you might have a hard time understanding what I'm saying. That's just how I am. There's not much I can do about that. Now, the very basic of scripting, like the very core, is these things, these periods. It's kind of stupid. All it is, it's just directing it to something in your script. I don't know why it's a period. It could just be like a space or something. Well, I mean, you could use space for something else in the script, but still. If it looks complicated, period, all that stuff, it's not that complicated. So, right here, I'm gonna have a little example for how to use it. The period thing is like the very core of everything in your game. If you look here, I have a bunch of stuff here. I'm gonna make some folders here. Here is child. Don't worry about how I'm structuring it. You will see the reason. Now in here we have a script. The script, since it's not disabled, will run immediately when you start the game. Basically, what I've done right here is I've called them all parents and stuff. The names don't matter, I just want to illustrate what it is, basically. The only names that matter right here are these child, because we'll be using them later. Say we want to get in the list of items here, we want to point the script to this right here. What we would do is script means this very location right here in the game where the script is run. It's this item right here. So if you had something in it, you'd be able to direct it by another period. But anyway, so dot parent. What this does is it points it to the thing it's inside. So script.parent means this folder right here. If you did another parent, it will mean the parent of this thing instead, which is this one. And so on and so forth. Parent. Now you're in here. Now you can do .parent again. Now you're in here. You don't have to call them parent. If you just do parent, it means the parent of this thing. Like if these were called anything else, it would still point to these. Now if I did parent another time, and if I counted them right, I would end up here in workspace. So if I go over here and say print, right here, basically print, you open parentheses, close parentheses, and then you put the thing you want in here, and it will print it in this thing right here. But for text, you just have to have parentheses because this right here is like a line of command, which actually points to this object. Now, it should print workspace when you run it. Let's see. As you can see, it prints workspace. That means it is now reaching this thing right here. So it is now looking at this, and then you can do whatever you want in here. So another way you can use dots like this is if you go script.parent.parent.parent right here. Script.parent.parent.parent. Now we have child here in this folder. we can point this thing to the child in here just by saying the name of the object you want, like this child. Now we have another child in here, we can do the child of that child. So it's going to go from here, and then it's going to look for child, and then it's going to look for child inside of that. And now you're pointing at this, and here you can have whatever you want. You can have like a message or whatever, but that's like more advanced. Anyways, if you go here, and if I were to say rename this to like child 2, and here if this would no longer work, I would need to say child 2 instead for it to point here. Now if we print that, it should say child 2, you see? So we went from the script from here to here to here to here to here, and that. Now dots also work with properties. Properties are these things right here. The way your stuff is organized may not be the same. You can go to view, and then you can open stuff and then reorganize them however you want. So say I had a part inside of 2. Part right here. So this part right here is inside of this folder, right? Let's call it part of child. Alright. Now if you see here, it is floating, but this is just basic studio stuff. You have to like learn how these properties work. You can just look them up as well. It's not that complicated. Anchored right here, if you look at the description, determines whether or not physics act upon the part. All this means is that gravity will work or not on the part. So if gravity works and it's big enough, you can push it around and stuff if it's not too big. So if I have it like this and start playing, as you can see, it just fell. If it stayed up, I would probably be able to push it around. Now, what if I want to say that I do not want it to be anchored? Of course, I can just take it here, but what if I want the script to say it's not anchored anymore? I can go here, and how you see right here, I am inside of child 2 here. I can go inside of part of child, and as you can see, it automatically finishes it for us if it's valid. And now we can go to anchored, right here, anchored. It treats it like a child, therefore you cannot have something inside of a part called anchored or else it will get confused. But yeah, all of these are also treated as the same thing as these. So imagine if this was like a part right here and it just had a bunch of values in here you could change. So right here you have this little list right here, anchored, and we're going to remove the print because we want to change it. Now if you want to change something, you do equals, just a single equal, so you can set it to something. So if we put in true and we play, it should no longer fall by gravity. Just like that. And if we check inside of the part, anchor is set to true. Now, if you take this all away, you can also run commands by using all of this stuff. So for instance, if I didn't know the name of this thing right here, well, if I didn't know it exists, because if you put it all like this in this order, the script will automatically assume that all of this exists. If it doesn't, it'll print an error because it finds that you don't have an object there and it gets confused, like, what are you doing? That's not a thing. So yeah, if you want to make sure something is there or not, you do 2 dots. Don't actually remember what it's called because I'm French, but this thing. And this will run a function based on the object you have. So in this case, the function we're running is find first child. Now, to clarify what functions are, it's stuff that Roblox made for you to use in your code, pretty much. So find first child will automatically look inside of the object and try to find something. Now this, if I remember right, does not work with properties. Not that you shouldn't, not that you need it, because every property is the same for the thing as long as it's the right thing. Like folder doesn't have anchored, but you should be able to know if it's a part or not anyway. So you can do destroy, for instance, and it will destroy the thing. It will like run a little script for you that it's already made. So like for instance, destroy would basically look for every single connection, delete it, and then set the parents to nil. Yeah. Also, you can set the parent like this, because parent is also a property in here. If I can find it. Parent right here. The parent is child2 right here. So if I were to change it to, let's say, workspace, it would change it to workspace, just like that. So if I said this object's parent to workspace, it would be this. However, you cannot just say workspace, you have to actually point it to workspace using this thing. So it would be .parent until you reach workspace in this case. Anyway, so as I was saying, you don't know if this object is here, and you don't want the script to crash if it's not there, because you don't know if it exists or not. Say if you're doing an attack, you don't know if something is there or not. But if you assume it is, it's probably going to crash if there isn't. So instead, you do find first child, and there's this handy dandy thing right here, which shows you how to use it. However, it is using some slight coding lingo. You can look it up online for more details. Like, I don't know what recursive meant, but what it does mean is it'll look inside of everything and everything. So I'll show you later, but find first child. Okay, to start off this, let's say we're looking for part of child. You have to give it the name in a string, as you can see. A string is 2 quotation marks and then the word you want, so part of child. When you put something in quotation marks like this, it means you're actually giving it text, like actual written letters. This right here is not considered text. It is considered something to point something to something else in the game. So if we do print here, it should give you this object right here, well, or the name, because it should be able to find it in theory. Yep, there you go, part of child. Now, if I were to put, say, part child, which does not exist because there is not something called part child in here, and print it, it'll give you nil, which means nothing, like the absence of something. But it did not crash the script, so I could have print example right here, and as you can see, the script kept going on because it didn't crash the script when it didn't know what it was. It just returned nil. If you assumed it was there and it wasn't, so part child, which does not exist, it'll crash because it does not know what you're talking about. And if I went back to part of child, which does exist, and it'll continue as normal right here. So that is find first child. There are other things you can find about these functions. For instance, there is also script.parent, .child, .child2, so wait for child right here. These right here, you see the symbols, there are all things you can use to do something with the code that Roblox gives you. So wait for child, what it will do is it will wait until the thing exists. And if you don't want to wait forever, over here there's a number you can put, it is in seconds, and once it runs out, it will just give up, give you nil as if it found nothing, like in find first child, and then continue the thing. If you put nothing in here, it'll wait forever until the thing exists and halt the rest of the code. So if we have print example, then find first child, part of child, it will happen instantly because it does exist. But if we put part child, well, print, it will never print anything because it will just be waiting until it finds it. But if we put, like, say 2 seconds, oh, and arguments have to be separated with a comma. You should wait 2 seconds instead. See, it found nothing, so it gave up, gave you nil, and then continued on with the script, moved on. So, what can you do with these functions? Well, for instance, if we find the character, we can tell him to take damage. So, if we go over here, this is all stuff you should look up by yourself. Starter character scripts, the scripts that start inside of your character. So like when you spawn, your character in game has this script inside of him. It's like how I can put this script inside of this part, but it will just be inside of the player instead. So I can do script.parent and instantly have the character. So script, and then script.parent. What is script.parent? It is the character of the player. So if, for instance, when the character spawns, I want him to take 50 points of damage, I can say wait 1. Again, wait being one of these things you just look up online. It's not that complicated. Script.parent, and then you can find, say, okay, so how the player works is it's like a humanoid inside the player. Again, I would tell you to just look this up by yourself when you have the time, because it's not very hard to find documentation on this, and it's extremely straightforward once you know how, like, what you're doing. Like, even I'm not like a guru, even I don't know everything about scripting, but if I need to look something up in the wiki, I will understand what it means and I will know how to use it. Like, it's not like how it's basically the same thing as printing. You see, it's like it follows a pattern that you can reuse with everything. Not everything is like completely different. Like nothing is actually completely different. Even the complicated stuff is just like a reuse of a function or like something of the sorts. It's straightforward when you know what you're doing. So, script.parent. So the script, let me just spawn a dummy to give you an idea. So plugins, rig builder, block. Yep. So this is your player in the game. It is essentially if I had a script here. Don't open it. So it's like if I had a script right here. Now script.parent means this, and in the game humanoid is here. So humanoid dot humanoid. Now we found the humanoid, and here we have the health. Now we can just say humanoid dot the health, because it is a property, equals 50, but Roblox also has a function for that called take damage, and it does like a more complex version of that. It's basically just setting it, except it won't like set it into negatives, and I just basically recommend using it more because take damage kind of supports well, this is for later, but events, and events are like things you connect. So if I want to know if a character takes damage and I just set his health, it won't actually know that he took damage, or this will. Now this is like on a per item basis. There's like no real way to know without like experience. So yeah, I just say keep working on your game until you know what you're doing. But in this case, I would do take damage 50 if you don't know a character's base health is 100. So when I play, I should take instantly 50 points of damage. Well, I did put a wait, so a little bit after that. As you can see, I took 50 points of damage. Now it doesn't show it super well. If I set it to like 80, like a lot of damage, and have it set to 5 when I spawn. As you can see, I just took a lot of damage after 5 seconds. And that is the basis for that. And going back to the find first child thing, script.parent.parent.parent.child, not child, that is these things with thunderbolts we're going to look at later. They're called events. child2 dot part of child, find first child. Well, we're gonna find part of child. So find first child, part of child. So if you put recursive, a bool is false or true. False for like no, or true for yes. By default it is false, so you don't have to put false in here if you don't want to. But what recursive does it will look inside of everything and everything. So if instead of child2 I went to child here and I told it to find part of child, if it was here it would look inside of here and not find anything because there's only child2, there's nothing called part of child. But if it's recursive, it's going to look here and then it's going to open this, look inside of here, and this, if this wasn't called part of child and there was like another thing inside of it called that, it would look inside of that and look for part of child, so on and so forth. But this will instantly find part of child in here. Now these kinds of operations I seriously don't recommend you do. It takes a lot of stress on the server. You can use them when you're like starting out. It's not gonna affect your game too much, but I don't recommend like making a game from the ground up with that thought process in the background. Like it's good if you just want to like experiment with stuff and like maybe make a simple game. Like I made an entirely working JoJo stand inside of Roblox, and it's using a lot of methods that are really not good anymore. But it works, and people have fun playing it, even though I know that a real full-on blown game using that would not work very well. So, if I go here, if I want to find part of child, I would go game.workspace. This points to here. Game is like the parent of this. It's like the explorer if you think about it. It's like the very core of the game, and then you go inside of workspace. So the game would be everything inside of, like if there was like a thing on top here, overlooked all of this. Anyway, so workspace in here. Say I want to find part of child in here. Now there is not too much stuff inside of this game, so it's not going to tax the game too much. But if I want to find, for instance, what the object part of child is parented to, since game.workspace means I'm here, I could do find first child part of child true. I would also print this. Now it's gonna be very taxing on the server because it's gonna be checking everything on like the same moment, which is like, it's not gonna lag somebody's computer, but it's going to lag the actual server, which is gonna make like everything not related to the player's computer lag. But it's not that bad in this case. There aren't a lot of parts. If there was like a bunch of buildings in your game, it would look through every single part of every single part of every single building. It's not a good idea. But in this case, it will find this. Now we want to know what it is a parent to, so we can do that parent in here. So game.workspace, find first child inside of everything called part of child. Then it points you to part of child, and then you find the parent, and then print that. So we want to know what it is. In this case, it's going to be child2, if I didn't make any typos anyway. As you can see, child2. It found what folder part of child is inside of. That's going to be all for this tutorial. This is just trying to show you the very core. If there's anything else you want to see or figure out how to do that is more like specific to Roblox, you can always just look at it online in the wiki. Anyways, see you later. I'm gonna go into more details in the future. If this gets popular, I guess I could go into more like unique Roblox stuff, but probably not. It's not a very good thing to look up at YouTube for help with learning how to code. So yeah, see ya.